And this is America's Mayor live from Manchester, New Hampshire. And we are very, very pleased to have you with us tonight. And we'll just pick up where we were if you were watching us on the Rudy Giuliani show. We hope you were. And we were talking about the interview Tucker Carlson had with Hunter Biden. First of all, strange thing that he would have Hunter Biden on when he spent a good deal of time in 2020 and thereafter really ripping Hunter Biden apart. And as Miranda Devine points out in her column today, having Miranda on his show 7 or 8 times and rather enthusiastically supporting the idea that Hunter was a traitor. I mean, remember, I think this is correct. The lion's share of the money that he and his old man got was from Red China. Red China accounts for, at minimum, 21 plus million of the money they took in. Let's just limit ourselves to the 4 or 5 years before he became president, his vice presidency, and his waiting to run for president against Trump. During that period, they raked in about provable 21 million from China, provable just from the computer hard drive, 3.5 from Russia. So they were doing pretty well with our enemies. Also, about 10 million from Ukraine. Now, did they take in more than that? No doubt about it. No question about it. Is there now unbelievable proof that John Solomon is bringing out day after day that the FBI was a plaything for them, covering up for them? Yeah, of course. And I mean, it's a lot worse than has already been brought out, which I can tell you from having watched what they did. The FBI, for example, had available to them a woman that myself and Bob Costello found, who was ready to make a deal and give them all of the offshore Biden bank accounts. Not only that, all the FBI had to do is go get a couple of the numbers and test her credibility. And otherwise, she would not get the things that she was asking for. As a prosecutor, that is exactly the way, and Bob and I both were prosecutors. That's the way you got to set it up, right? You don't buy a pig in a poke. You want to get a deal from me, I got to know you've got legit information. She was offering the numbers for offshore bank accounts for the Bidens and for a number of other American politicians, and foreign, by the way, who were getting laundered money from Burisma. She was in charge of doing it. She also offered 5 other independent witnesses who she claimed would corroborate various parts of it. When we turned this over to the U.S. attorney in Pittsburgh, we were directed by Bill Barr to do it. And we didn't know that Bill Barr was Fugazi then, that there was something wrong with him. And he fooled us. I mean, he told us to go. He didn't want to handle it. He wanted the U.S. attorney to handle it, and we gave it to the U.S. attorney in Pittsburgh. He and the FBI were very enthusiastic about it. They kept pestering us for more information for about 4 or 5 days. Then they went away and never came back. And Bob used to say to me, I don't understand. They don't call me anymore. Well, we now know why. Somebody figured out they were getting close to their protected major criminal and traitor, Joe Biden. And nobody was going to get close to him because who the hell knows what he had on the FBI, right? This was a thorough criminal operation, the likes of which would have to be compared to Russian, Italian, any organized crime you want to compare it to, except they're worse because they affected our national security. The money they took from China, who the hell knows what they gave back to China? We know they gave them an air base in 400 miles from China. No American president would have left that air base but a compromised one. None of this has been even touched. None of it's been touched. Not a damn thing. So Tucker, who I don't know what's happened to him, or who, you know, and have you ever seen the original cover of the novel, The Godfather? They have an expression in The Godfather, if you remember, of pezzo novante. And at one point, Michael, the Godfather, as he's dying, says to his son, I thought by now there'd be a Governor Corleone or a Senator Corleone or a President Corleone. And he said, we didn't have enough time, Pop. And then at some point he said, I didn't want to be a pezzo novante. A pezzo novante is a puppet on a string. And on the cover of The Godfather, the original novel, there, you see this? You see that? Up in the, what would be right-hand corner, I guess? Yeah. That's the puppet on the string. That's the pezzo novante. Now, that is exactly what the Biden family was. They were pezzo novantes for China, for Russia, for Ukraine, and who knows how many others. These are basic, highly paid prostitutes selling out, not their integrity or their honor, but the United States of America. They had no integrity or honor. I mean, the Biden brothers started off as petty little shyster crooks. And then they got themselves somehow, because we have an entirely corrupt system. Yeah, there you go. There they are.
We have that one ready.
Yeah, that's really remarkable. You got that ready.
Tucker and
now.
Tucker and
so
Hunter.
who is pulling? So who is pulling?
The Soros brothers, or the father-son.
They're pulling. You think they're the ones giving
I
Tucker
don't.
money?
I would have cut it. I wouldn't put them in it. I'd leave it right here.
Well, so,
we don't know. We can't prove. We don't know.
We don't know, right? Yeah. We don't know.
So we'll say that we don't know. We'll leave it here.
I mean, the speculation, is, speculation has been Qatar as a go-between for Iran. I mean, he's even turned around on Iran.
Yeah.
This is a country that just killed about 100,000 people. And he does this religious thing all the time. I don't know what religion he is. He says he doesn't go to church. He just reads the Bible. Now, based on his interview of Fuentes, apparently he doesn't understand the Bible. He reads it, but then he reproduces it falsely. So I don't know what religion he is, and it may be a religion on the other side, on the other side. But what is he doing with Hunter Biden? He knows what a crook, he knows for sure what a crook and pervert Hunter Biden is. I imagine he's seen the pictures with the underage girls.
Now, how much of this do you want to play? Do you want to play there?
Well, I don't know. I'd like to play the part where several lawyers have told me I should sue him.
Okay, let's see if this is the part
where he agrees that somehow Steve Bannon and I are agents. Originally, we were agents for Russia. Now we're agents for Netanyahu. Because everything is blamed on. Yeah. Remember, this sick individual, him, blames everything he blames on the Jews. The Jews were responsible for the 51 spies who lied, who he condemned at the time, blamed it on the Russians.
Right.
Now it's not the Russians any longer, because he likes the Russians, right? He did a sit down, kiss your ass interview with Putin, right?
Right.
How many people has Putin killed?
Right.
So now we don't blame it on the Russians anymore. We're blaming it on the Jews,
sure,
who we blame everything on.
Mm-hmm.
You have any? I mean, we both know him, Ted. It's not as if we don't know this guy.
Well, I work for him.
What's wrong with him?
And here's one thing I will say. Everyone thinks of Tucker and his time with Fox News and the Trump thing. Tucker didn't necessarily see the Trump. I think President Trump taught Tucker Carlson kind of where the country was going, right? Before 2016, Tucker Carlson was known
very
as
opposed to it. It was very derogatory comments about. One of the reasons I always dealt with Tucker as I don't know. And I was constantly being told by people that he's anti-Semitic. And I will not accept that until I see it. Well, I should have seen it. And that's why I did the Fuentes thing, which I think you should listen to. You should go with it. I think that's one of my greatest pieces of work. Because it was very subtle and it was very, very vicious the way they did that. And the what do they call it, tropes or something? And the things they use against Jewish people.
Yeah.
They use every single one that's been discredited possible. But this is absolutely absurd. That somehow Netanyahu,
Right.
and there's some guy who was an expert on computers, who somehow was helping John McIsaacs, who's Jewish, Israeli, whatever, and so he becomes like the connection to Netanyahu. Well, that's absurd. First of all, he's actually won a lawsuit suing people who have claimed that and recovered damages for that. Second, if Netanyahu had anything to do with it, I sure didn't know that. And I know Netanyahu for 35 years. And finally, the damn thing has been validated by even the FBI, who validated it and covered it up for a year. Again, nobody's paid a price for that, including Barr, who just jerked everybody around. He had solid proof that the Biden family was selling influence to our biggest enemies and didn't do a damn thing about it. What kind of American is he? Very officious and very important and very but what kind of an American is he? A bad one. So I recommend Miranda's article. In fact, we'll get her on maybe next week and have her describe it. And also, I don't know how John Solomon would feel about an interview right now, but you know that more or less he was my partner in originally obtaining all of this. Not directly, but two separate tracks, but we work with each other. Now he's digging out the proof that he's always known existed. As you know, I believe that no matter, we've got to help Ukraine because I love the people of Ukraine. But I think we've got to support Zelensky. But I have enormous reservations about Zelensky because he's got the whole thing in a file. He's got it all, including a massive bribe to his predecessor that should be recovered for the good of his people. But maybe he's afraid to recover it, either physical consequences or they'll take his money away. There's so much to this that it's still not been. So I don't know who the hell Tucker is working for, but there are a lot of possibilities because there are a lot of people that want to cover this up. There's still, you say, well, so much has come out, right? There's still just an estimate. There's still 70% of it that's covered up. But it really angers me to see how these people just lie. Maybe I'm still too naive after everything I've done. The Democrats come up with people like Hunter Biden and where did they get this Hassan Piker from? Where did he come from? Where did they find him?
That's yeah.
Where did they find him? I mean, he's like Hassan Piker.
It's like he came out of
what American? What American would say that America deserved 9/11?
Right.
Now,
That's
What, how does the poor guy that was delivering breakfast that morning, that was blown up by an airplane where the Islamic terrorists in it were yelling Allah Akbar? How does that guy deserve being killed in the name of Allah? Now, make no mistake about it, unless you want to lie to yourself, they were killed for the furtherance of Islamic domination of the world. That's why they were killed. That was the motive for it. You know how crimes have motives? A guy kills his wife because he wants to get the insurance money, or a woman kills her husband because he's cheating, or whatever, or the mafia kills somebody because they think he's ratting. All of these innocent people were killed. So they would further the effort started 14, 15, 1600 years ago by Muhammad for Muslims to take over the world. That isn't Islamophobia. That isn't any kind of conspiracy theory. That's just a damn fact, which the longer we try to escape it, the greater inroads they're going to make in taking us over. I don't know. It doesn't seem like they can, but 20 years ago, it didn't seem like they could take over Dearborn, did it? You think Dearborn's an American city now? Well, go look at it. See if you can find an American flag there that hasn't been burned. You think the government of New York City is an American government now? Well, then just go watch Mondami and his lying wife, with her going off to the Middle East and wanting to take the New York City police officers into an area where Americans aren't supposed to go. Well, they're not going to kill her. She's on their side. But wasting a couple of New York City cops would be exactly the right thing for them to do. I don't think she would give a shit either. I mean, she says all the things that he's making believe he didn't say. And then he says, well, you can't question her because she's my wife. I'm not questioning her as your wife. I'm questioning her as a disloyal citizen of the United States. I don't give a damn if she's your wife or anybody else's wife. Anybody that sympathizes with the people who carried out 9/11 doesn't deserve to be in Gracie Mansion. I don't think she's a natural born citizen either. So maybe somebody should pull a naturalization and throw her the hell out of America so she could stay in Syria or wherever the hell she's going, or Lebanon. But I mean, Piker was the big campaign surrogate for Syed, our friend Syed.
Abdul El Sayed. His top person is this one, Hassan Piker. Now, Syed again.
Is that Syed? That's Syed.
That's
right?
Abdul. We got to give him.
He wants to play football with Mike Rogers.
Yeah. So you saw that, Mayor. That's right.
He's about 4'2", isn't he?
It's an interesting strategy.
What kind of football player was he? A little mouse on the field?
So he did play football, and it's quite the strategy, right? To
I know
attack.
he sits there with his arms out. Now, he doesn't really have biceps. It looks like he does.
We got to find pictures of that. Yeah.
He doesn't show you. He's about 4'8". He's a little shrimp.
Right. So
I know he thinks he's a tough guy. But any guy who does that kind of stuff, my father taught me this. Any guy who does that, my father used to, you'll be able to take him because he's a bullshit artist. If you have confidence in your ability as a street fighter, you don't brag about it.
Right. That's a good point. And so
I never
somebody
bragged
like
about
that who's talking about.
I never
it so
bragged
much.
about it, but you tried to hurt me. I kicked the shit out of you.
Somebody who's talking about it that much. That's a good point, Mayor. And that's something
my
you hear.
father, who was a boxer and taught me how to box, drilled into my head the following: when you're in the ring, there are rules, Marcus of Queensberry rules. You want to be a sportsman, and you want to follow every single one of them. Absolutely, you necessarily going to have to hurt somebody, but that's the byproduct of a sport, and you follow the rules. But if you're in the street, don't fight. Don't fight. But if you're forced to, win. And there are no rules. It was very good advice for growing up in what later became Bedford-Stuyvesant, Brooklyn, and I lived in various parts of New York that weren't what eventually I made them into, and they still are preserving some of that, but they're going to go back under this maniac. It wasn't for my father, because I developed that confidence to protect myself. I didn't feel frightened to go anyplace in New York. Probably even a false confidence, but I think it's part of why I was able to do some of the things I could do. And people say to me, "Well, were you afraid?" Or it's not relevant. When you're leading a city, being afraid is not relevant. I don't have time to be afraid. I have time to try to make the right decisions. If you're in a street fight, there's no chance to be afraid. You just got to get yourself out of it and win. Well, who knows? They might pull a knife on you and kill you. You got to make sure you win it quickly. Faster the better. You got to kick them in the balls. You kick them in the balls. I mean, I wouldn't do it now or any time in the last 50 or 60 years. But when I was a kid, that's the way I got through. Well said, Mayor. And good advice. And I have a feeling. Advice. I have a feeling that Mike, who was an FBI agent, and Mike Rogers, I actually think Mike, who's a bit older than the big mouth, could probably kick them all around the floor.
I was gonna say, right?
Mike is about twice his size.
Don't call Mike Rogers out. Mike said FBI agent, and you got to pass a lot of tests, right? At least back in the day.
Well, I think any guy bragging about it, you got to suspect.
That was a very good point, Mayor. And
you got to suspect.
Isn't that just one of the old?
Yeah, it's an old picture, but I mean, he's still in good shape.
No, but what you said is, but that's one of the oldest lessons. That's the early lesson you're taught. Well, I don't know what those speak softly and carry a big stick.
I don't know. I don't know if I've ever seen an exception to that.
Yeah.
When they brag, there's a reason for it. There's an insecurity.
Yes.
That even if they are talented in some way, there's an insecurity to that talent that you could take advantage of.
Yes. Very well said.
Now, Hassan Piker, that's another. What is it? What? Why do all these people hate America so much? So I get it with the communists, right? They're taught to hate America. The only way they're going to take over is by hating America and getting as many Americans to hate America as possible. It's right in Karl Marx. It's right in Engels. It's right in all of the scumbags who wrote about communism. There was a person on last night. I don't know who it was. I can't remember, but she said, or he said, how do these people demonstrate for socialism, and they can't give you one example of a socialist success? Not only do these countries crash and burn, but all kinds of people die, and all kinds of people steal and become very rich. Castro became very rich, so did the whole family. Putin and all the dictators before him were the richest people in Russia. Xi Jinping is the richest guy in China, and the 100 million in the Chinese party are all fat and happy, and about half of China is starving to death. Same thing in Venezuela. You want to give me an example? You're going to tell me Sweden? Sweden's not communist. Sweden's a monarchy. And you compare Sweden to America. I mean, there's no country that has a per capita wealth. None. Relative to the rest of the world, we don't really have poverty. Now, go crazy now. Just go crazy. But you tell me, with the amount of welfare that we have available, there's still, it was true during the pandemic for sure, but there are still situations where a lot of so-called poor people are making more money than people that are working. If you can't game the system, it's only because you're so lazy, you won't even go get welfare. Now, you look at that guy and you wonder, what is he all about? I mean, we could go through all the things that he said. And why do they hate Jewish people so much? Do you get? It's so sick. I don't know.
I don't get it. I don't get it.
This has bothered me since I was probably 7 or 8 or 9 years old. When I was in Brooklyn and Garden City South, and particularly in Garden City South, where a third of my friends were Jewish, and I never even thought about it. I mean,
Right.
And then all of a sudden, I would hear this stuff. Where does this come from? Now, I was a very, very strict little Catholic kid, taught by the nuns and the priests and an altar boy and all this stuff. Now, I got to tell you about the Catholic Church, at least my teaching in the Catholic Church. Being anti-Jewish or anti-Semitic would have been a sin. Mm-hmm. It would have been a sin. It would have been a sin, and it would have been contrary to the way I was taught about the revelation of my religion as one that came from the prophets of the Old Testament. I know there's a lot of argument that Catholics don't know the Bible the way Protestants do. Maybe that's true. Maybe Protestants know it a little better. But to say that Catholics don't learn the Bible is really wrong. I mean, I probably read through it 2 or 3 times in school, in grammar school, in high school, in college. Yeah. And then, of course, particularly now with the new Mass, which is controversial compared to the old Mass, but the old Mass did it too. But the new Mass really emphasizes. I mean, you pretty much cover the Bible going to Catholic Mass every 3 years. ABC.
Nice.
But by the time you do ABC, you've read probably 70 to 80% of the New Testament and about 75% of the Old Testament, if not more. But just going to church every Sunday.
Yeah.
Every Mass now has a very long reading from the Old Testament, a psalm, which is from the Old Testament.
It's from the Old Testament.
Then a reading from the epistles of Paul or Peter, and then, of course, the gospel. That's a lot of Bible. The old Mass had a psalm from the Old Testament, sometimes a reading from the Old Testament, but not always, but a psalm from the Old Testament, and an epistle and a gospel. And the emphasis of the Tridentine Mass, we call it the Old Mass, right? Before the Novo Ordo, the new Mass. Emphasis of that was the sacrificial service in the second half of the Mass. Emphasis now is on the first half of it, whether they want to admit that or not. I mean, that's the bulk of, and that's part of what the debate is about. As to which people prefer. But in any event, that's a different subject. Hassan Piker is what we were talking about. And I do not get it. I don't get why the Democrat Party wants to have this guy in there like their new major political director. I mean, he's getting quoted. He's getting quoted as if he's some kind of a political guru.
Right. Right.
So he won with Syed and he lost with Hong, right?
Yep.
But he won with Syed. I mean, as a political director or political operative, looks like he blew a hell of a lead with Syed.
Yep.
Syed went into that election like 15, 20 points ahead. He won by.
Yep.
Hong went in 15 points ahead and lost. Usually that means you take the political guy who ran it, you kick him out and you tell him, go find something else to do for a living.
Right.
But instead, this guy's become a bigger, and then he goes and has that press conference in which every other word is F. which, as I said, I came from Brooklyn, and I'm not going to pretend I get all offended and stuff like that. But it does kind of indicate that the guy doesn't have much of an intellect. His vocabulary is rather limited.
Mm-hmm.
Did you know that he congratulated the brave Mujahideen who injured Representative Dan Crenshaw? Did you know that? Piker did?
But I'm not surprised.
And that October 7 was because of what Israel did, not a concerted attack by terrorists on civilians that was organized to ignore the Israeli army as much as possible and go after civilians. And that involved, and we see it on video, rape, murder in front of the children, murder in front of the parents, and of course the hostages. And of course, this means nothing to them, including American hostages. But they hate America. How do they get any votes, Ted, with the hatred they display for America? How does any American vote for a Syed?
I mean, look, we can break it down. Look, young people are feeling, sorry, and we got to fix these cameras a little bit here. Look, some folks in this country, the younger generations, are feeling the squeeze a little bit economically.
Well, who cares if they're squeezed? Their grandparents felt the Depression and were pro-American.
Yeah, right.
They don't have anything like the Depression. They're a bunch of privileged little shits.
Right, you're right.
What they really need is somebody like my father to kick the shit out of them.
Right. So my point. Yeah, right. You're. That's it. And
if I ever said the things about America that they said, I wouldn't get much of a chance to say it in my house. I mean, I can't imagine what their parents are like.
Right.
Oh, they're going to say, a lot of those parents are going, well, I don't know.
It's interesting, right? Even I got to credit my parents. I felt like they raised me the right way. I was expected to do chores and, work around the house.
A bunch of ex-hippies.
Right. Well, that's also
a lot of the parents of these kids are a bunch of ex-hippies, and they were smoking their marijuana, and these assholes are smoking even stronger marijuana. Well, we're going to take a short break as you contemplate the deterioration on the mind of America from marijuana alone, and we'll be right back. Tunnels to Towers Foundation honors America's greatest heroes. Heroes like the dedicated public servant, Josh Bischoff. Josh began his firefighting career as a volunteer and quickly rose through the ranks to become CAL FIRE's assistant chief of tactical air operations. Josh was driven by a deep sense of purpose and a passion for serving others. His leadership earned him great respect across the entire state of California and beyond that, until tragedy struck. And two helicopters collided while fighting a California wildfire. Josh was killed in the crash. He left behind his wonderful wife, Cheryl, and their two children, Derek and Juliana. The Tunnel to Towers Foundation paid the Bischoff family's mortgage immediately, lifting a financial burden and enabling Josh's family to focus on healing after unimaginable loss. Josh's family is committed to honoring his memory by living with the same drive, the same joy, the same patriotism, and the same purpose that he did. Honor and help heroes like Josh and their families who've sacrificed everything. Donate $11 a month.
Here we are, pretty much at the beginning of the process here at this pristine, I call it a laboratory. It's not like a factory, it's like a hospital. This is the beginning of the process for roasting. Deep grain, very good quality. Most people don't use this quality. We deal with small farmers because we like to know who we're dealing with. They give us the highest quality, all organic, non-GMO. You should know all Arabica beans, no Robusto, all Arabica. They're going to go into the roaster, and it'll get roasted for about 20 minutes or so. Oh my goodness, look at these. My goodness. You're going to want to specially order these. This is what goes into Rudy's coffee.
Are you ready for some action?
I'm ready for action.
Get the Elite TV plan only through the portal. 218 channels, and it's only $69.95 a month.
Wow.
Including your free portal.
That's cheaper than everyone else.
Your favorite sports, movies, news,
Wow.
even daytime dramas. We're talking about ESPN, OAN, Newsmax,
Wow.
channels you can't get anymore in certain areas.
Compared to the competition, this is a way better deal.
Endless selection. Not to mention all the free music channels. There's over 700 premium and classic movies all ready to go.
Wow.
Plus, they got catch-up TV that allows you to go back and watch what you've missed or want to watch again. Cut your cable in half and get twice as much for free.
Way more channels for half the cost.
After the first year, the subscription then drops to $57.95 monthly,
Wow.
where you change or upgrade anytime. Go to QUXNow.com and get yours today. Use promo code RUDY. Act fast. These deals are selling out.
This is Rudy Giuliani, and I'm back on America's Mayor Live, and we have a guest with us at exactly the right time because there's so much discussion right now due to the horrible testimony of Dr. Fauci. Because, look, he has a right to take the Fifth Amendment, but we kind of have a right to answers too, and he can assert his right, and we have to respect it. But we can also, hey, we can be suspicious because of it. And I mean, if any guy could defend himself, you think, I mean, I would go up there and defend myself. And he just spent his whole time saying, right to not answer questions, like a little rat in the New York subway system. Well, I'm sorry, Dr. Holland. I'm just letting it off because it was so many years of knowing that guy something was seriously wrong with him, and he was misleading our people and getting them into terrible situations. But doctor, you're the CEO of Children's Health Defense.
And Mayor,
Correct.
I'll be the one to correct this. I believe it is a Juris Doctorate, or is it a PhD?
Yeah, I'm not a PhD, but you know, whatever.
But she has a JD. She has a JD.
I'm a lawyer. I'm a lawyer.
So
Fine.
I clerked for Michael Mukasey.
In Italy, everybody's a doctor.
Everybody's
I just got
a
back from
doctor,
Italy for
right.
17 days.
No worries.
Everybody I met was il dottore or dottoressa.
But did you hear what she just said, Mayor? She worked with Mike Mukasey.
I clerked
You
for
did?
Mike Mukasey. Yeah,
Well, you work with a great man then.
I did.
So
And I met you at the Gateway Pundit Conference last August.
I know you did. I know
Yeah,
you did. And
we
we had
go
a very
way
good
back.
conversation.
So anyway, well, you're right to vent. Dr. Fauci, it turns out, in his own words, is a pathological liar. He lied about everything during COVID to the American people, and his own words on federal servers prove that. And so it's no surprise that he would assert the Fifth Amendment, whether entitled to it or not, before a Senate committee.
Yeah.
But, you know, yes, the country needs a reckoning. Candidly, you know, the world needs a reckoning. COVID was a disaster. Important medical treatments were suppressed. There was propaganda. There was censorship. There was a denial of natural immunity. There were forced, coerced injections that were extremely dangerous with a novel technology. There was suppression of the injuries that were happening. All of that were happening. All of that, candidly, has not been dealt with at all. And Dr. Fauci is not the bad apple in the barrel. He is one of many, many, literally hundreds, if not thousands of people within the government who have some responsibility for this. And then the whole medical profession, really the schools that shut down. We have to have a reckoning to ensure that this doesn't happen again.
The most important. And it also has resulted in a great deal of lack of confidence in the American people in, call it the medical community, which is unfortunate because a lot of the medical community is perfectly solid and we have to depend on them. I don't know how to cure myself. I've got to go to a good doctor.
You're right.
But, you can't imagine how much distrust there is, and rightfully so.
Yeah, rightfully so.
They've created that for the good doctors and the good medical professionals.
Correct. Although I would say it was the rare doctor, Rudy, that spoke out against the coercive medicine that happened. And we work closely with those dissident doctors, if you will, and they lost their licenses. So the medical profession did not shine during COVID. But I completely agree with you. We all need to have access to good medicine. And what Dr. Fauci and others at NIH and in the government did absolutely created the distrust that now Secretary Kennedy has to deal with. And the way that he's trying to get beyond that with the president is through transparency. We need real science. We need transparent results. We need to be able to falsify them. We need to double check. We have to have skepticism.
But it's unfortunate the way a lot of the things they do, a great deal of distrust is created for it. Like what they're doing with vaccines, I don't know. It makes sense to me. I don't know if vaccines are good or bad. I do know that there are too many. When I looked, I almost passed out when my son and daughter-in-law a couple of years ago, from my little granddaughter Grace, showed me the list of vaccines they wanted to give this poor little baby.
Right.
I got to tell you, my son and daughter-in-law are very nervous about, rightfully nervous about vaccines.
Rightfully so.
I don't know if I'm recalling, but they had like 18 vaccines ready for her in the first year.
Oh, no, more than that. Closer to
this poor kid with this, her arm was this big. Where were they going to put these things?
Correct.
So most of them were diseases. If she got them, she wouldn't get until she was 20 years old.
Correct. No, the schedule is not good. And the president and Secretary Kennedy on Monday of this week came out with an executive order where they reduced what is recommended to all children. And then they created categories that are high risk and shared decision making. It's very important. And they also talked about maximizing parental choice. Parents have to decide. There's no such thing as one size fits all medicine. It depends on your age. It depends on your composition. It depends on what other conditions you have. And unfortunately, with vaccines, they've been given to everybody as if they would be equally valuable for everybody, which is simply not true.
So I think a lot of Americans, I'm going to go get it and put it on maybe tomorrow or the next or Monday. A lot of Americans, I don't think have seen the whole chart.
Oh, put it up. Absolutely. And
it just shocked me when I saw it.
It's a pretty shocking chart. So the day of birth, hepatitis B, Kennedy and Trump have said that's not a good idea. Then 2 months, there's several, 4 months, 6 months, 12 months, and up through age 5. But the bolus amount is in the first year of life, and they contain things like aluminum and live viruses and aborted fetal cell lines and more. They're not safe products. They've been improperly tested, and it should always be informed consent. It should be up to the parents on behalf of their children to make those decisions, not the government.
And unfortunately, when they showed that to me, I had already been informed about the corruption of the pharmaceutical, medical, industrial complex.
Well,
and every one of those vaccines is a multi-million-dollar product.
Correct. Billion-dollar product.
$1 billion for their company.
Correct.
Which is a sure payer, as opposed to the rest of the industry now, where you got to worry about whether you're going to get paid.
And even beyond that, A 1986 law from Congress gave liability protection to the doctors and to the pharmaceutical industry. You have to go to a kind of, frankly, a kangaroo court if your child is injured or dies. So it's a double whammy. There's liability protection, and then the states can mandate this. So the companies have no marketing risk. They have no liability. You can imagine what happens in that context.
Well, tell me how you look at the whole situation of all of these vaccines, which are new. I mean, I don't know. I might have gotten 2 or 3 when I was a baby. My son 3 or 4.
Right.
And daughter.
Right.
But all these vaccines and the tremendous incidence of autism.
Oh, well.
Isn't there something to be investigated?
Of course there is.
I mean, I don't know if there's a connection between the two, but I'm a lawyer, right? And you show me one set of facts, and then you show me another set of facts, and they're sort of coincident with each other. I got to take a look at whether there's a connection. And when they start to yell at me that I can't, then I know there's probably something there. I'm sorry.
Correct.
That's a stupid analysis.
Correct. You know, they like to say, oh, it's been debunked and we've looked into it. And, you know, what are they doing reopening? No. They looked at 2 things with bogus studies. They looked at a particular adjuvant, thimerosal. They looked at the measles, mumps, rubella shot. They were lousy, corrupted studies. And they didn't look at anything else, Rudy. And that's been proven by some of our colleagues. They did Freedom of Information Act requests to the CDC. There is not good science behind the vaccines or the schedule. And that's what Kennedy is about, because we have a chronic disease epidemic in this country. Over 50% of kids have some kind of chronic health condition, whether it's allergies, asthma, ADHD, diabetes, you name it, apraxia, anxiety. We've got to get to the bottom of that. And vaccines are a plausible reason for those things, if not more than that.
That 50% number, what was that, let's say, 2 generations ago? Either it was my generation or yours, or what was it?
I mean, it was somewhere around 10%, Rudy. This has been this
that's what I would think.
astronomical rise in conjunction with the rise of the vaccines in the first year of life. They are concomitant. So to say that it's implausible that there's connection is just irrational.
No. In fact, there's a sort of, thinking as a lawyer, there's a prima facie case that they're connected.
There is. There's absolutely.
And you got to pursue it until you can disprove it.
Correct. And they say, oh, it's.
And if you can't, fine. I mean,
right. Of course,
it may be something else.
Sure. And I don't mean to say, but I can tell you from having talked to hundreds and hundreds of parents over the 25 years I've been involved in this. For most parents, for many parents, they do believe strongly that their child regressed right after or shortly after vaccination. It's not the only cause of autism, but I believe the proof is in that vaccines can cause autism, and it's the driving force in the autism epidemic, which is 1 in 31 kids today.
So, Mary, do you think, like I do, that RFK Jr. is really doing a great job?
Oh, I think he's doing an amazing job, Rudy. He's up against so much. You know, I worked with Bobby here at Children's Health Defense. He was our founder.
Oh, you did? Okay.
And I know Bobby well and have worked with him closely. And he's up against so much in that health bureaucracy. The scientists, and he doesn't bother him, Rudy. He keeps his eye on the ball, and I'm so proud of the work he's doing.
I'm proud of him too. You know, I know him mostly because he sued me.
Well, there you go.
When I was
You're
mayor.
A lawyer, you understand.
When I was the mayor, he would sue us for the river, for the
Hudson. Well, he cleaned up the river, Rudy.
The state more than us, but we would get sued by him. And sometimes he can be a little overzealous.
Yes, that's true.
Yeah, but you know, I always admired that.
Yeah.
But I was a great fan of his father.
Oh, I think we all. I mean, the country.
I loved Bobby Kennedy.
Bobby Sr.
I was a Democrat at the time, but I think even if I was a Republican, I loved him. And one of the things I'm proudest of is when I brought the case to break up the Teamsters Union. A whole bunch of senators and congressmen, 130, wanted me fired. They wanted me to be fired by Ronald Reagan. And Vice President Bush wrote a letter in my defense and said, all he's doing is carrying out the work of Robert F. Kennedy.
Well, there you go. That's
and I'm so proud of that. I still have that letter.
That's neat. We'll have to show that to Bobby sometime. I'm sure he'd appreciate it.
Well,
But
Mary,
yeah, I think he's
tell
doing a
us,
great
tell
job.
us what the organization does.
Well, Children's Health Defense is trying to end the epidemic of chronic disease among America's children. But we have chapters around the world. We work with parents. We work on behalf of not only sort of looking at the vaccine schedule, we look at electromagnetic radiation as another important exposure. Glyphosate, we look at the food supply. We look at what's happening with the medical establishment generally. We're talking about the data centers. We have a streaming platform. We put out a newsletter every day, The Defender. We're on social media. We have a conference coming up in DC on September 17, where Senators Johnson and Paul will be speaking, Representative Gosar. They've been doing some phenomenal work on the vaccine issue.
They have.
They have.
Well, nobody more intellectually honest than Senator Johnson.
I love Senator
He
Johnson.
proved himself during the whole situation.
He stood up to the whole Senate. With COVID.
And they tried to destroy him, including McConnell tried to defeat him.
I know. No, he's really
He
doing
reminds me of
work
Bobby
right now.
Kennedy.
Well, they're friends, and a lot of what Bobby Kennedy got through Freedom of Information or through HHS, because Fauci was under him, he handed over to Ron Johnson and to Rand Paul.
Yeah, I
so
handed
they've
a
really
lot of
been
this.
working very well together, which is inspiring in the crazy world that we live in government. So
I handed over a lot of what I had about Biden to him, and he and Grassley, and
good.
you're about the only people I could trust in the Senate.
I hear you.
Well, thank you very much, Mary. Your work
Thank
is
you.
terrific. We'll have you on
Thank
again.
you.
You really are.
Pleasure.
Thank you. God bless you. I think the audience really appreciated your explanation. It was so lucid and so clear and so necessary, because every time Secretary Kennedy or one of his Dr. Oz or the president raise an issue, they're like attacked by the corporate industry, including the Wall Street Journal. They're constantly attacked. They make RFK Jr. sound like he's some kind of a fool. But they're doing it on behalf of the industry. I know it. Please, will you understand it? I represented them. I know them. I know the pharmaceutical industry. There are a lot of things I can't even say. Just trust me. Thank God for our children that they're raising these issues. Nobody else would have the guts to do it. Believe me, these little freaking vipers they have in the Senate and the House, they would pee in their pants if they had to do anything like that. And they had to go up against the pharmaceutical industry with all their lobbyists. They'll get no contributions. I don't know. Maybe it's better to stand for principle and get no contributions than go back to whatever the hell you were doing and put out a newsletter or go speaking around the country. You think being in Congress really means a damn thing? Only the leadership means something. And maybe four or five senators and 7 or 8 congressmen mean something on both sides. The rest of it is all bullshit. And some unbelievable percentage, particularly in the House, are fugazi. You go look up what that means, okay? So DSA could honestly be described as a white extremist organization. And I think we should describe it as a white extremist organization. So if you just look at the disclosed records, it's over 60% white. So let's say in New York, for example, 31% of the city is white and 60% of DSA is white, and they elected the mayor. So they superimposed a white mayor on a population of color. Now, I don't think like that. And if Mondami were anything like a reasonably decent mayor, I would say that analysis is ridiculous. And I even think that analysis is ridiculous right now when I'm doing it, but I'm doing it for the point of being sarcastic. It's a white extremist organization. If they want to say that the Proud Boys or the Poor Boys or the Big Boys or whatever the hell they are, who I never, I don't think I've ever met any of them, whoever the hell these guys are. But if they want to say that they're white extremists, DSA is a white extremist group. They have very little support in the black community. They have very little support in the Hispanic community. If you look at the votes recently with these characters like Syed, who was ahead by 20 points, 15 points, he won by a cheating margin. I'm not saying he cheated, but it's kind of margin where you can't. You know why that is? Because all the black people, all the poor people voted against him, which is the usual constituency of the Democrat Party, not a bunch of privileged little white assholes who basically voted for him. Same thing with Mondami. You see the leaders of the black Democrat Party, what they're doing in New York, they're all the guy in Queens and the guy in Harlem, and they're basically saying he doesn't represent us. He doesn't do shit for us. They don't give a damn about poor people, except to exploit them. Gee, you got to listen to them, don't you? Now, I politically, as a political, I'm thinking of ways in which we can use that effectively to save the country in this particular election and the next one. But the message of these people does not resound with the legitimate poor people in America. And when they're given an option that reaches out to them in a sympathetic way, they vote for that option, like Trump did in 2024, and like the people who defeated crazy anti-Thanksgiving Hong, right? The anti-Thanksgiving witch, and almost defeated Syed when both of them were supposed to win by 15%, right?
Oh yes,
we have Stephen with us.
Syed.
Both of them was, you know the Syed one probably really well.
Well, that was expected to be a
shock?
much bigger blowout, especially when you looked at the prediction markets ahead of time, and it was 99-1 basically.
Prediction, you mean the betting?
The betting ones, and then the polls, and then I was on the ground gauging the energy, and it certainly was behind Syed. But then you can't underestimate kind of the Democrat turnout machine in Wayne County, the urban areas, the teachers, the different union operations that they have. And despite whether they went for one candidate or the other, those organizations are in place to deploy. And we don't necessarily always know the politics isn't always like the first level politics, right? Like these unions, could have had their turnout machine going one way or the other, despite an endorsement type of thing. But that, yes, in Michigan, El Syed, that was a much closer one than a lot of us thought. Still a big victory, big turnout. Still trying to analyze how many Republican voters crossed over, because we didn't have a particularly contentious primary.
You think they voted for him because they thought he was more defeatable?
My understanding, and after talking to a good number of voters, is that yes, a number of voters did vote for El Syed. I would have urged him
not to do that.
A lot of people
I always follow the following rule. I don't know if somebody taught me this or I figured it out. You may get what you wish for. What I mean by that is the people who went and did that probably think Syed is extremely dangerous for the country.
Yes.
Now, he can't possibly get in office if he doesn't get nominated. So we're
again,
better off taking a risk that we get the ordinarily stupid Democrat than we get a traitor to the United States. So why put him in the position where he can have the public office?
Well, I think that people
that sort of illustrates somebody who is more dedicated to politics in America.
Yeah, or dedicated to different sets of values, right? Like maybe what makes El Syed dangerous in so many people's minds and these voters' eyes, it's like that's not as dangerous to
yeah.
warrant
I
not
get it,
risking. Because honestly, without a contentious primary on our side, you could be very strategic with it. But yes, then once it kind of became known that this was occurring, especially with the early vote, there was a very coordinated campaign to tell these people to stop doing it and to prevent more people from doing it. But when we just look at the turnout on the Democrat side, it is far above and beyond, how many Democrats there are, basically. So yeah, there is essentially
in Michigan, if you're a Republican, can you vote in the Democratic primary?
Oh yes, sir. You pick your ballot.
I can't do that in New York. I don't know if I can do that in Florida. I don't think so.
Well, and we're finally getting a lot of.
I'm a Florida voter now. You should know that.
Same, actually, but
that's very strange.
But yeah, actually it's getting people to discuss the open primary and whether or not that is like the proper format for a democratic society, because it's been gamed on the other side too, right? And recent
both parties have intruded in and invaded the primary of the other side. They do it here in New Hampshire all the time.
Oh yeah, and the ads too. Like, I mean, and it goes a little bit above most voters, but we have historically Republican PACs investing in Democrat primaries and vice versa. And
when we as soon as this election is over in 2026, the day after, we'll be out of New Hampshire by then, but we'll be back next summer. It becomes all New Hampshire the day after. I started concentrating on New Hampshire when I ran for president about 3 weeks before the midterm election was over. I made my first trip up here to organize people about 3 weeks before, and 3 of my opponents had already been here. So you don't understand how. Remember, the New Hampshire primary takes place in January of the presidential year. So it takes place in January of 2028. If you want to organize for it, you got to organize for it in 2027.
Oh, and believe it, people are talking about it already.
And therefore, you got to be, as soon as everybody gets over 2026, you got to be ready to go. Not just for here, but for South Carolina and several other places. Now, what the Democrats have done, which I don't know, this may create a real problem in their party. They got rid of we didn't, the Republicans didn't. New Hampshire is number 1 for us. They've done away with the New Hampshire primary as number 1. And they made South Carolina number 1 because they believe they can control South Carolina.
I think we've seen that, right?
With the black vote in South Carolina. Now, if they still can, they might not be able to now, but they think they can. I've forgotten who's 2nd and 3rd, but again, places they think they can control for a establishment candidate. That's how they theoretically cheated Bernie out of his nomination. And so let's say AOC runs, right? Right now, the first place she has to run is in South Carolina, among a bunch of blacks in South Carolina. And the blacks in South Carolina and the blacks in the Democratic Party hate DSA.
Well, have you been hearing her recently? In a lot of her media appearances, she does seem to be walking back from those.
Oh my God!
DSA
Yeah, she's
statements.
a complete. I won't say it.
And well, in quoting woke 1 was crazy. Kind of walking back.
Yeah,
from
we're
those
going to create
progressive
woke
things.
2. And then there's woke 3, which brings back woke 1 and destroys America if they get in.
Wait, do we have wherever there's Thanksgiving, I'm all about that one. So
yeah.
maybe that's woke 3.
By Thanksgiving, this place here will be focused on the primary.
Oh yeah, and to be fair, we're already looking at the presidential primary.
Yeah,
and it is being organized already.
So this will be. I have to figure out which ones come before here. There's one other before this.
Well, I know that Michigan, and forgive me, we moved ours. Gretchen Whitmer and Democrats moved our primary up, and it caused us a bunch of headaches. So Michigan is going to be earlier.
Has a law, but they didn't use it last time against a Democrat. They have a law which, if you put a primary before theirs, they'll put the primary in 2027.
I think it's
So I
it's
remember when I was running,
Yeah.
there was a fear that they would kind of do it in like right after the presidential election in order to be first. But they maintained their first in the nation primary in 2008 when I ran. But running in 2008 in New Hampshire meant running in 2007. It didn't mean by 2008 it's over.
And these days, you're right. It's starting, even if we walk
No,
this to its
I-
logical conclusion, like, start this thing right now.
No, I
basically.
announced probably in March of 2007.
But you had been organizing ahead of that,
which
obviously.
means people will announce in March of next year.
Yeah. And it'll be interesting to watch the ad reserves and
They'll be getting ready before that, behind the scenes.
oh yeah, that's happening. They got business to do. A lot of these guys are busy, so
And they have put this one, New Hampshire, in the category of. Seems like they think an extremist can take it on the Democratic side. That's why they put South Carolina first, because Biden was always afraid he couldn't get it because a more left-wing Democrat would come along and take it away from him. Bernie would win it.
Yep. Well, certainly if we're comparing between South Carolina and here, and plus New Hampshire is a little weird. They do have
On the Democrat side. On the
yes,
Republican
yeah.
side, it's the weirdest state. Federally, it's completely Democrat. 2 senators, 2 congresspeople. Locally, Republican governor, Republican legislature, that's a one-house legislature, Republican legislature, veto-proof margin. It's overwhelmingly Republican locally, overwhelmingly Democrat federally. So go figure that.
Well, and if you just drive around the place, you understand why there's a tendency towards Republican. Like this reminds me of Northern Michigan with the people outdoors, appreciating nature, independent,
But
fiercely independent.
This is sort of Republican sensitivities. This is sort of Bush kind of country
Classic.
as far as sensitivities are.
Sure. And a little bit more open-minded, being close enough to Boston and other areas to be like,
it's sort of like more like old-fashioned Republican than Trump Republican.
but interestingly, not religious.
No, it's one of the least religious states in the country, which is amazing.
So
Because
that-
may I just say, don't get offended with me because it's a Protestant state. Like Rhode Island is one of the most Catholic states in the country because it's overwhelmingly Italian.
Which also is an interesting factoid.
Or Massachusetts has a very, very strong Catholic influence because of the Irish Catholics.
Oh yeah, and when
You
I think of Boston, I think
Massachusetts.
Christopher.
You got to be careful about Massachusetts. I mean, they've had Republican. It is not. It's even more conceivable you could have a Republican governor in Massachusetts than in New York.
Ah, yes.
So, I mean, I helped elect Governor Weld and Governor Salucci, both Republicans. And that isn't ancient history.
Oh, thinking
Well,
about it
maybe
too.
it
I've been
is.
seeing some Scott Brown signs on the highway on my way in.
Scott Brown, unfortunately for Scott, I like Scott a lot. Scott is much more popular in Massachusetts than he is here. And the thing is really unfortunate because he has real legitimate connections to New Hampshire. He spent a lot of his childhood here. It's not as if he's like encroaching here. When he ran in Massachusetts, it was really a choice. And the party forced him to run in Massachusetts because we thought he could win. I campaigned very heavily for Scott, like him a lot. And I think his rejection in New Hampshire is really a product of his running in Massachusetts first.
Well, let's not
Had he
get
run here
ahead of
first,
ourselves,
Had
right?
he run here first, he'd have been
Let's
like
not
Kelly.
get ahead
Ayotte.
of ourselves and call him out for the count.
No, he's
Just,
not.
right?
He's not. But he has a bit of a struggle.
Yeah. And like we said, the way they vote, it's there's some local stuff. There's
So he's
some
running
national
against
stuff.
Sununu, right?
Yes, sir.
Sununu is.
Oh, well, yeah. Now that
Sununu
you-
is like all over the television. If television counts at all, he has beaten the shit out of Pappas.
And the name has been, you mean Brown, right?
I don't see Brown on television.
Oh, yeah. So he's definitely beating
But
Brown on
Sununu
the
is beating the
airwaves.
shit out of Pappas is the Democratic candidate who has the best one of the best restaurants in Manchester.
And to be fair, it's excellent. I love it. The chicken fingers are amazing.
Yeah, okay. Yeah, it is. It is excellent. It's true. It is. But have you watched?
Well, that doesn't mean that you should be the congressman. Like, a lot of people with amazing restaurants should not be the congressman.
On our show, every once in a while, they're all over the internet with these Sununu ads.
Yeah, and
apparently, Pappas voted for something that favored the taxpayers of Massachusetts and New York, and hurt the taxpayers in New Hampshire. I don't know. I'm sorry. I don't pay enough attention to really actually figure it out.
Well, thank you for letting me know. We're going to dig into that.
Boom. So they've been hitting them with this for about 2 months. Originally, it was some packet was doing, because they didn't announce for a candidate. They just went after Pappas. Boom, 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 boom. You can't trust Pappas. You can't trust Pappas. Now you can't trust Pappas. Vote for Sununu.
Yeah, well, and to be fair, a Democrat vote in Congress is not you can't expect it to be reasonable in this day and age, right? Even if you're a New Hampshire guy who's local, with all the fixins.
But I don't see any ads from my friend Scott.
Well, I mean,
and I see a few.
Are you watching? Where are you watching TV?
No, I don't want. I mean, I watch it like how I watch it.
Yeah,
and therefore they intrude on what I'm trying to watch. But at least from what I watch, Sununu is winning the war of ads on TV. Even Pappas will. I mean, it's like Sununu 3-1.
Well, but here's the thing too. We'll see if that necessarily translates with our evolving media market. Maybe Brown is just being a little bit more strategic and maybe hitting digital harder or other avenues, because as we saw,
but he's on here too.
El Sayed got outspent like 11-1 nearly with TV ads blanketing the place, and he still pulled it off, right? But by a squeak, right? But but the insurmountable wall of ads that Stevens was able to get put up, he was able to climb over that.
It's really interesting. I'm not sure I completely understand. At one time, when there was just television and radio, you could understand how ads figured into a campaign and what percentage of your time and money should be spent on ads. Now you don't know. With this thing, I'm pointing to my iPad or your phone, right? It's hard to know. It's hard to know how many people you reach and how effective they are.
Well, and let me add another layer to that. The new AI sort of race to be able to influence the algorithm. And that's one thing that I've actually been working on, but it's how to inform. You're writing one for the voter, and then you're also writing for the algorithm, because a lot of these people, when they're searching for election information, and like rightfully so, it's very efficient. They're using these AI interfaces to be informed by candidates and bypassing all of our digital, all of our, other areas.
So we're talking about this election very tactically, like two people that have been involved in a lot of elections. I got to tell you, this election is about, and the next one's going to be even more. This election is about saving America from a communist Islamic takeover of this country. You see Dearborn? That's what they want for all of America. That's what they're aiming for in my city of New York. They're aiming for a Dearborn. Because, it's got to be 5 years ago that several of my good friends, but one in particular, from Bay Ridge, Brooklyn, which is a Catholic, Irish, Italian neighborhood from the time I was a baby. You know the movie Saturday Night Live? That's Bay Ridge, Brooklyn. Bay Ridge, Brooklyn is Muslim now. One of my friends that lives there hates it because at 5 o'clock in the morning, he's awakened by he's not used to that. Catholics actually have a morning prayer, but they don't go out in the street and yell at everybody for matins and louds.
Well, Jesus actually said, well, when praying, don't, wail and make whines to show others that you're praying. Talking about like internally.
The modern Pharisees? Yeah.
Yeah.
all that stuff. Jesus was very opposed to that. It's pray. But you don't have to show everybody you're praying.
Yeah. And it's actually harder to pray if you're kind of making a big demonstration of it.
Okay. But in any event, so let me give these people a couple of things they need to know. You do know that do you know who Rama Duwaji is? Please just think about it for a second. But I want you need to start thinking about this, because they're coming to take your country away. And they've taken certain portions of it away already. Rama Duwaji is the first. She probably would be very offended if I had the first lady, because she doesn't consider herself a lady, which is probably correct. But she's the first lady of New York City. Rama Duwaji was taking a trip to Syria and Lebanon, which the State Department and the War Department and the CIA says is exceedingly dangerous for any American, and you shouldn't go. And she wanted to take a bunch of New York City detectives with her. Now, it's quite likely that in Syria, if there was a chance they're going to kill anybody, they're not going to kill Rama Duwaji, who agrees with them, who is very, very pro-Hamas, very, very pro-Islamic terrorist, very, very pro-Islamic extremist, and very anti-American, even though she's the wife of the mayor. But killing the cops would be wonderful for them. And she announced, or without checking with the police department, she's going to go there to see her family in Syria and Lebanon. And her family is on the Hamas side. She's going to go there to see them, and she's going to take the cops to protect her. Well, the police commissioner said, well, nobody checked with me. And the union said, nobody checked with us. And we're not sending anybody to a place that America says you shouldn't go, because we're Americans, unlike you, Rama Duwaji, wife of the mayor. And then the mayor said, oh, it's lied, like he always does, because he's a complete pathological liar, like all extremist Muslims and communists are. Because lying is perfectly all right in defense of the cause. So he lied and said, well, we never asked for protection, and this is a mistake, and like horseshit it is. Rama, you want to go there, you're going to be fine. Nobody's going to kill you. You're on their side. You're against us. Just don't take any of our poor police officers there, huh? And God bless you, New York City PD, for standing up to the mayor and his wife, who are anti-American and hate America and are seeking the demise of our culture and civilization. Please remember that. That's what you're dealing with. You're dealing with a struggle to preserve your country, your values, your religion, and your civilization. They hate, let's go right to the top. They hate Western civilization because it's the only one that has really taken the human being and put him in a place where he has rights and values. Did you ever consider the following fact? And sometimes you just got to step back and think about this. So we have all these people that are anti-Israel because they hate Jewish people. Israel is the only democracy in the Middle East. Why the hell are we against the only democracy in the Middle East and in favor of all the dictatorships, half of whom kill women, most of whom don't allow us to practice our religion, and most of whom hate us? Why? We have some friends there that work with us, and they double cross us too. But let's think of all the countries you want to get a map out? You show me another democracy in the Middle East. Used to be Turkey until Erdogan took over. He's made it into a Muslim extremist murdering dictatorship. Jordan is run by a king. Saudi Arabia is run by the royal family that constantly is worried about the street overtaking them because they're not Muslim enough. Emirates is run by a king. Emirates includes Dubai and Abu Dhabi, king. I love Bahrain, and Bahrain is a beautiful country. If you could have a country run by a king like Bahrain, you're okay. But Bahrain's run by a king. Kuwait, Iran. I want you to look on the map. You find me a democracy in the Middle East. But why do we hate the one democracy in the Middle East? Why do we have all these dumb little jackasses marching around against Israel, which is the one democracy in the Middle East, in favor of all the dictatorships? Does it bother you? If it doesn't bother you, there's something wrong with you. I suggest you go see somebody to help you, either a psychiatrist or a person who can help educate you so you become an educated, literate human being. There's an interesting article that I love because apparently Mandami is going to spend his vacation between August 16th and 23rd in what is called upstate New York. But he's refusing to tell people where.
Oh, I thought you were going to tell me he was going to Syria.
No, he's going to upstate New York.
That.
So they're asking, how do you define upstate New York? I'm going to save that for when it gets closer to when he does it. Because I'm probably an expert on what's upstate New York and what isn't. And also, I did an analysis for you politically of Bruce Blakeman and the problem that he has in getting elected governor, which you would think would be easy against a hoople like Hochul, right? A corrupt hoople like Hochul. But it isn't. And right now, when you look at the last poll, which I think is a pretty legitimate one, where he's within 10%, which is not a bad number for a Republican at this stage. It's better than Zeldin was 4 years ago. And he did pretty well. He lost by 6%. They make that like it was really close. 6% really close anymore? I don't know. But in any event, Blakeman could win. But right now, the internal numbers don't look like that. He's losing New York City by 19% in New York City. To be safe, traditionally, you had to be at 30% in New York City as a Republican to be safe. Now, Pataki won it with 25% in New York City. But he's winning the suburbs by 8%, and he's not winning upstate at 0%. It's even. So the only way you make up for, let's say he gets up to Pataki's number in New York City, 25%. You got to do something like 12% in the suburbs and about 18%, and he's at 0 right now in upstate New York. Maybe 15% in upstate New York.
Wait, who's at who's at 0 in upstate New York? Blakeman?
Blakeman and Hochul are even in upstate New York.
Oh, okay, that's what. Yeah.
So
okay.
Now,
Really?
Yeah.
That's interesting.
Now, why is that? Well, she comes from Buffalo. He comes from Nassau County. And they are now. Here's a mistake that his campaign's got to straighten out. Nassau County, he got to let them know he doesn't come from New York City. They have they, meaning upstate New York, do not want a governor from New York City because New York City has all the power anyway. And look at Mandami runs the state. All she does is she might as well put like a burqa on or something or whatever. Whatever you want, Mandami.
Well, Blakeman could benefit from a bounce away from socialism and Mandami. If
what he has to do is say, I don't come from New York City. I come from a suburb of New York City. I'm just like you are in upstate New York. We look at New York City and all they're doing is ruining this state.
And run the same way we're kind of running in a bunch of other places. Like choose socialism or
But they don't
freedom.
upstate New York doesn't look at it that way right now because they see him as a guy from downstate. And he shouldn't be burdened with that. I knew that because I several times considered running for statewide office. I had an advantage, though. I was the only conservative mayor of New York ever. So I ran rather well in upstate New York. And believe it or not, it's an advantage in upstate New York to have an Italian name, which is why Cuomo always won.
Well, and you wanted to save this, but where does upstate New York start? Where we can save it.
I'll tell you sometime.
Okay.
But for me, it starts well above Westchester.
I just drove through the Finger Lakes and it was beautiful.
Oh, well, that's upstate New York for sure.
Absolutely, right? Niagara Falls, absolutely.
I spent a lot
gorgeous.
of time there when I was a law
It's
clerk.
a beautiful.
I love the Finger Lakes.
So beautiful.
So let me get you a couple of these things quickly.
We're going on Newsmax, man.
So, well, they're gonna have to wait. More than 2.7 million students in the Empire State are eligible for Freedom Scholarships. Hochul has promised that she'll buy into the Trump program, but hasn't. That's 2.6 million students who could get about $1,400 a year. So they could go to the charter school, Catholic school, Jewish school, school in which you get grades and you don't fail like you do in the public school. And she right now, she's standing against that. Even though she promised to be for it, why is she doing that? Because like it was true in the Soviet Union or is true now in China, the party runs everything. The Communist Party runs everything. The Communist Party is the teachers' union, and they're telling us she can't vote for that. It's the same thing as the hunt for the Red October. In order to take control of New York, you got to kill the Communist Party agent, like the admiral had to kill the Communist Party agent on the ship. The Communist Party agent in our schools to destroy our children, particularly minority children, is the teachers' union. They've been the biggest contributor to the destruction of the advancement of poor Black people of any group in America. There are 19 states that could block 20 million children from a federal tax credit. And thank God there is an organization run by the former governor of Virginia, Glenn Youngkin, that is trying very, very hard to win that on a national level. That will change education in America, particularly for our minority children, who we have to be concerned about because they're going to be part of the same America as our children. So don't start getting parochial, huh? I don't mean that in a religious sense. I mean that in a civil sense. Ukraine. You see what's going on in the Strait of Hormuz. The same thing is going on in the Black Sea. It's very, very interesting, very damaging, but very hopeful in some ways. So from the beginning of the war, Putin's invasion of Ukraine for no justification at all, he has been trying to prevent Ukraine from using the Black Sea to assert their economic power, which is unique in Europe, which is the breadbasket of Europe. So from the Black Sea, they export and make a fortune on grain, food. That's why they're the breadbasket of Europe. To a lesser extent, Russia uses the Black Sea on the eastern side of the Black Sea. Got the eastern side of the Black Sea and the western side of the Black Sea. For the last 2 or 3 years, Russia has done everything it could to cut off Ukraine on the western side of the Black Sea from being able to export grain. And it's hurt their economy and required them to get money from Europe and America to fight the war. About a year ago, and building up slowly but now powerfully, Ukraine is responding by literally destroying the Russian Navy in the eastern side of the Black Sea. They've had to retreat back into Russia. Now, the Ukrainians block the Russians about 3-1 in exporting food. And it's loosening up the restraint on them. It's another one of the indications, Mr. President, that Ukraine, despite our difficult feelings about Zelensky, may be winning this war. You look at the casualty rates when they fight army to army on the borders, 8-1. You look at the invasion rates. Ukrainians are hitting about 20 targets to maybe 3 or 4 that the Russians are hitting. Something is going on here. And why would we want Putin to win this war? It doesn't make sense. It just doesn't make sense. Putin has also threatened to retaliate for the seizure of Russian commercial vessels that are aiding Iran. Yeah, okay, retaliate, Vladimir. What the F are you going to do? You're not going to do anything. So go ahead, shoot your mouth off. You got to realize this is a stone cold killer, and you got to deal with him like that. You just call him up and say, retaliate. Because we'll blow you the effing out of the water. There's a big debate. Who controls Hormuz? Do we control Hormuz, or does Iran control Hormuz? So the international group, KIFR, says that very few ships are getting through. Only 84 vessels were recorded going through the strait last week. It should be like 100 a day, and it's 84 a week, according to Kepler. However, Kepler doesn't really have complete access to all the vessels going through, because of the necessity to maintain secrecy and the necessity to sneak them through. So the reality is that we're getting a lot more vessels through. We're getting a lot more through. It is hard to know how many. It probably, excuse me if I say this, but it's like a rational thing to do, just probably less than we say, but a hell of a lot more than they say. We're getting a lot more oil through Hormuz. Witness the price of crude oil, because it'd be a lot higher if we weren't. Now, the most important thing is every day Hormuz is getting less and less important, because every day the Arab states and the other countries who are vital, intelligent people are adapting, and they're finding other ways to do it, including to a large extent by pipeline, which is being on an expedited basis being developed very quickly. There are experts, neutral experts, who believe that in 2 years, the Gulf of Hormuz will be largely irrelevant, which basically rips away from Iran whatever leverage they have. So, for right now, this is an important debate, but long term, sorry, it's not. Now, it is true, and this I think Iran is becoming more and more extreme as they become more and more desperate. The Ayatollah, who may or may not exist despite the AI pictures of him, has appointed a significantly more radical, how we would describe it, barbaric group of people than were even there under his father. When the president says that the government's become more moderate, he may have, knowledge that we don't have, but my observation is it's just the opposite. The government's become much more extreme and willing to overturn any attempt that we made toward negotiations. For the life of me, I cannot understand why we would want to negotiate with them anymore, because an agreement with them is worthless. They have convinced the president that economic pressure will destroy Iran. It's possible, but not likely. I think these religious maniacs can withstand any economic pressure we impose on them. They understand only one thing: military pressure. The only way we're going to be able to save Iran is to get rid of them and allow Iran to develop a representative democracy that is free of the reign of terror. It isn't a matter of regime change for the sake of regime change. It isn't a matter of imposing our will on them. It's a matter of saving future generations of Americans and Israelis and others who live in that region. Because all they have been for 47 years is a source of terrorism and death and destruction. And they will be for every day they're left in office. I don't think we went through all of this to let them stay there. Finally, and we went over it a bit last night. We'll save this for tomorrow night because this deserves a real analysis. And it's the putrid, horrible publication known as New York Magazine, which has a cover piece today or this week describing New York City as Habibi City. I don't even know what the hell Habibi means. The last guy who gave a name to New York City was John Lindsay, and it was Fun City, and he destroyed the damn place, which I had to fix. He was a Republican, but he was a left-wing Republican who became a Democrat, which is what he really was. And then he was followed by other Democrats who were either crooked or destroyed the place. I don't know what they're talking about Habibi City. New York is not a Muslim city. It is not Dearborn, Michigan, and you're not going to make it Dearborn, Michigan. We'll discuss that in detail tomorrow night and have a few people maybe who can discuss it with us. But I'll be damned if they're going to take the greatest city in the world and 5 o'clock in the morning wake us all up with their screeching. Thank you. It's not a religion of peace. Sorry, George Bush. Big mistake you made is when you stood before Congress and said, Islam is a religion of peace. There are a lot of Islamic people who are peaceful despite the fact that it isn't a religion of peace. And it's a credit to them if they are. But their founder, Muhammad, and their pagan god, the sun god, Allah, is not peaceful. He's a warrior. They didn't spread their religion like Peter and Paul by converting people because of the excellence of their conduct and the strength of their beliefs. They conquered people because they killed them and tortured them and put them in mass graves. That's how they spread for 3 centuries. That's what they are at base. They're a violent cult. Sorry. You can get angry. You can do anything you want. I just told you the truth. Incorporate it, understand it, and understand they're coming for you to take your country away from you. Absolutely to take your religion away, whether it's Jewish or Christian. Absolutely to take your democracy away, because they don't believe in democracy. You think Mandami believes in a democracy? You think the wife who's going to Syria and Lebanon believes in a democracy? Well, they sure don't act like they do. They glorify terrorists. They attack legitimate people. We have got to understand what we're facing, and we have got to stand up to it, and we have to tell each other the truth about it without their intimidating us. When the hell could these people from the desert come and intimidate the United States of America? The apex of Western civilization. Sorry. Get your pride back. So we'll be back tomorrow. Ted, anything else we need to cover?
Nope, but I'll tell everyone to get over to Newsmax. The mayor will be on live in 5 minutes.
Okay, well, we'll see what happens on Newsmax. But God bless America. Pray for Israel. Pray for Ukraine. Pray for Iran. Pray for us. And Donald J. Trump. God bless America. Woo-hoo.
It's our purpose to bring to bear the principle of common sense and rational discussion to the issues of our day. America was created at a time of great turmoil, tremendous disagreements, anger, hatred. There was a book written in 1776 that guided much of the discipline of thinking that brought to us the discovery of our freedoms, of our God-given freedoms. It was Thomas Paine's Common Sense, written in 1776, one of the first American bestsellers, in which Thomas Paine explained, by rational principles, the reason why these small colonies felt the necessity to separate from the Kingdom of Great Britain and the King of England. He explained their inherent desire for liberty, for freedom, freedom of religion, freedom of speech, the ability to select the people who govern them. And he explained it in ways that were understandable to all the people, not just the elite. Because the desire for freedom is universal. The desire for freedom adheres in the human mind, and it is part of the human soul. This is exactly the time we should consult our history. Look at what we've done in the past and see if we can't use it to help us now. We understand that our founders created the greatest country in the history of the world, the greatest democracy, the freest country, a country that has taken more people out of poverty than any country ever. All of us are so fortunate to be Americans. But a great deal of the reason for America's constant ability to self-improve is because we're able to reason, we're able to talk, we're able to analyze. We are able to apply our God-given common sense. So let's do it.